my name is Ava, a 22-year-old graphic design student with a life shaped by unexpected turns. You might wonder how someone my age ends up living with her uncle, especially given the story I'm about to share. One I never could have predicted. Growing up, my world was a whirlwind. My parents' divorce when I was young sent me drifting from place to place, searching for a sense of stability. I poured myself into my art, sketching, designing, and taking on freelance projects to keep my focus, but life's uncertainties always lingered. When my mom had to leave for a work assignment, I needed a place to stay while finishing college, and my uncle Nathan became my anchor. He's always been more than just family, a guiding light who taught me to ride a bike, fix a leaky faucet, and even gifted me my first car at 18. His countryside home, shared with his wife Victoria, seemed like the perfect refuge, a quiet escape from the chaos of my past. I thought it would be a simple, temporary stop, a chance to catch my breath and focus on my studies. But what unfolded in that house was far from ordinary, something I could never have foreseen. This story, raw and unfiltered, is one I need to tell, so stay with me, subscribe to my channel for more gripping true tales like this one, and don't forget to like this video, because what's coming is unlike anything you'd expect. It all began with a single moment, a spark that changed everything, pulling me into a story I'm still trying to understand, a tale of connection, confusion, and choices that would reshape my world. Settling into Nathan and Victoria's countryside home felt like stepping into a painting, serene, quiet, and far removed from the city's restless pulse. I imagined it as a brief chapter, a tranquil pause to focus on my graphic design studies while navigating the final stretch of college. The house, with its sprawling fields and warm, rustic charm, promised stability, something I'd chased since my parents' divorce fractured my world. At first, everything seemed to align. The routine of sketching in the morning light, the soft hum of the countryside, and the rhythm of a new life took shape. Nathan, my uncle, was the heart of this refuge, not just family, but a mentor who'd shaped so much of who I am. He taught me to ride a bike when I was 6, his patient hand steadying the wobble of my first ride. He showed me how to wield a wrench for small fixes around the house, and when I turned 18, he surprised me with my first car, a beat-up but beloved sedan. His kindness was a constant, his thoughtful gestures a lifeline through my turbulent years. Moving in with him felt like coming home, a safe harbour after years of drifting. Victoria, his wife of 2 years, was a different story, older than Nathan. She carried an air of quiet authority that made me feel like an intruder in their space. The guest room at the far end of the house became my sanctuary, a place to avoid stepping on her toes. Over time, the tension eased. Victoria began sharing tips on cooking, offering advice on keeping the house in order, and our interactions grew less strained, not quite friendship, but a cautious warmth that made me think we could coexist. I thought I was finding my footing, blending into their world, but something began to shift, subtle at first, like a whisper I couldn't ignore. The more time I spent with Nathan, the more I noticed the way his presence lingered, his easy smile when he'd catch my eye across the dinner table, the brief brush of his hand when he'd pass me a tool or a mug of coffee. It was nothing overt, nothing I could pin down, yet it stirred something in me, a pull I didn't understand. I told myself it was gratitude, admiration for the man who'd been my rock, but the feeling grew heavier, charged with an energy I couldn't name. When our eyes met in quiet moments, there was a spark, a fleeting intensity that made my pulse quicken. I'd catch myself watching him, noticing the way he moved, the warmth in his voice when he spoke my name. It was absurd. I knew he was my uncle, my family, yet the air between us began to hum with something unspoken, something that felt both wrong and undeniable. I tried to bury it, to drown it in my sketches and freelance projects, but it clung to me, growing stronger with every shared moment. The tension built slowly, like a storm gathering on the horizon, and I couldn't shake the sense that something was coming, something that would unravel the fragile balance I'd found in this house. Each glance, each accidental touch felt like a step toward a line I didn't know how to avoid. I wrestled with my thoughts, telling myself it was in my head, a trick of loneliness or imagination. But the connection was real, palpable, pulling me toward Nathan in ways I couldn't explain. It was as if the house itself held its breath, waiting for the moment everything would change. And though I didn't know it yet, that moment was closer than I could have imagined, a spark ready to ignite a fire I wasn't prepared to face. One quiet evening, the countryside house was wrapped in a stillness that felt almost sacred, the kind of calm that makes every small sound feel significant. Nathan and I were alone, Victoria out with friends, the hours stretching out in a way that felt both heavy and electric. I was in my room, lost in the lines of a graphic design project, the soft glow of my laptop casting shadows on the walls, when I heard faint footsteps in the hallway. Nathan had been napping for hours, his door slightly ajar, and though I told myself to stay focused, something tugged at me, a pull I couldn't name. The creak of his bedroom door echoed in the silence, and my heart gave a small, unsteady lurch. I didn't think. I just moved, drawn toward his room as if guided by an invisible thread. I told myself I was checking on him, nothing more, but the truth was murkier, tangled in feelings I'd been trying to ignore. Standing in his doorway, I saw him lying on his bed, one arm tucked behind his head, his face softened by sleep, bathed in the golden lights filtering through the window. He looked peaceful, almost otherworldly, the shadows tracing the lines of his jaw, his chest rising and falling with slow, steady breaths. My pulse quickened, a flush creeping up my neck as I stood there, frozen, unable to look away. I didn't know why I stayed, why I let myself linger, but the air felt thick, charged with something I couldn't define. Maybe it was the quiet, maybe it was the solitude, or maybe it was the weight of everything I'd been feeling for weeks, the unspoken tension that had been building between us. My foot caught the edge of a small table, and a vase wobbled, then crashed to the floor with a sharp clatter, the sound slicing through the silence like a blade. Nathan stirred, his eyes fluttering open, and for a moment our gazes locked, his confusion giving way to something else, something warm, unguarded, and impossibly intense. He blinked, rubbing sleep from his eyes, and let out a soft, groggy laugh. "Ava, what are you doing here?" His voice, thick with sleep, sent a shiver through me, and I fumbled for words, my mouth dry, my heart hammering against my ribs. "I didn't mean to wake you," I stammered, my cheeks burning, feeling caught, exposed, like a thief in the night. Nathan sat up slowly, his eyes never leaving mine, and that smile, the one that always felt like home, curved his lips. But there was something new in it, a flicker of curiosity, of recognition that made my breath catch. "It's okay," he said softly, his voice a gentle anchor in the storm of my thoughts. "You know you can always talk to me, Ava. I'm here for you." I nodded, but my mind was a whirlwind, spinning with the weight of what I felt, what I shouldn't feel. The room seemed to shrink, the space between us heavy with unspoken things. I wanted to speak, to explain, but words felt too small for the intensity coursing through me. He patted the bed beside him. "Come here," he said, his tone warm, inviting. And though I hesitated, something inside me pushed me forward, overriding every warning in my head. I sat next to him, the mattress dipping under my weight, and suddenly we were close, too close, his cologne filling the air, his warmth radiating against my skin. I could hear his breathing, steady but quickening, mirroring my own, and the tension that had been simmering for weeks crackled to life, undeniable, overwhelming. Our eyes met, and the world seemed to pause, his gaze soft but searching, a spark dancing in the depths of his eyes that made my skin hum. "Ava, are you okay?" he asked, his voice low, careful, but laced with something deeper, something that matched the ache in my chest. I didn't answer, couldn't answer, my pulse racing as I leaned closer, drawn by a force I couldn't resist, my lips trembling as they brushed against his, tentative, uncertain, like stepping into a dream. He didn't pull away, his breath catching, and then his lips met mine, soft, gentle, but alive with a hunger that mirrored my own. The kiss deepened, and the world fell away. It was just us, caught in a moment that felt both wrong and impossibly right. His hand cupped my cheek, pulling me closer, his touch igniting a fire I didn't know I could feel. My fingers grazed his arm, feeling the warmth of his skin, the steady pulse beneath it. My mind screamed to stop, to pull back, to remember who he was, but my body refused, craving the connection, the intensity, the way his lips moved with mine, blurring the line between us. The kiss grew urgent, consuming, and I lost myself in it, in him, in the way he made me feel wanted, needed, alive in a way I'd never known. He pulled back for a moment, his forehead resting against mine, our breaths heavy, tangled, his voice a strained whisper. "Ava, we shouldn't." But his eyes told a different story, torn between duty and desire just like mine. I reached for his hand, my fingers intertwining with his, holding on as if letting go would break something fragile, something we'd only just discovered. "I know," I whispered, but the words felt hollow, drowned out by the need pulling us together. I kissed him again, bolder this time, no hesitation, just the overwhelming urge to stay close, to feel him. His hand slid down my back, drawing me nearer, the heat of his body grounding me in the chaos of the moment. Every touch, every breath felt like a promise, a step into something neither of us could fully grasp, but neither could we turn away. The room seemed to pulse with our shared rhythm, the light dimming as the world outside faded. It was just us, bound by a connection that defied reason, a spark that had flared into something unstoppable. But then, the sharp sound of the front door opening downstairs shattered the silence. My heart lurched, panic flooding my chest as I pulled away. The reality of what we'd done crashing over me like a wave, guilt and desire warring within me, leaving me breathless, trapped in the space between what was and what could never be. The sharp sound of the front door opening downstairs shattered the fragile cocoon of our moment, a jolt that sent my heart into a frantic gallop. I pulled away from Nathan, my breath ragged, the warmth of his touch still lingering on my skin like a forbidden echo. Panic surged through me, a tidal wave of guilt and fear crashing against the undeniable pull I still felt. The room, once a haven of intimacy, now felt like a trap closing in. Nathan's eyes, locked on mine, held a storm of emotions, confusion, desire, and something unreadable, a shadow of the man who'd been my anchor, now wrestling with what we'd done. Neither of us moved, the air thick with the weight of our shared secret, the silence broken only by the approaching sound of footsteps climbing the stairs, each one a hammer strike against my chest. I recognized the cadence instantly. Victoria, her presence looming like a reckoning we weren't ready to face. My mind raced, searching for an escape, an explanation, anything to undo the moment. But there was no way out, no words to erase the line we'd crossed. The door creaked open, and there she stood. Victoria, framed in the doorway, her eyes flickering between Nathan and me, surprise etching her features, then sharpening into something deeper, an intuition that pierced the haze of our guilt. Ava, Nathan, what's going on here? She asked, her voice steady, but laced with a quiet tremor. Not anger, not yet, but a question that demanded truth. My face drained of colour, my throat tightened, words crumbling before they could form. I stammered. We... But nothing coherent came, my voice a fragile thread unravelling under her gaze. Nathan, still seated on the bed, rubbed the back of his neck, his own discomfort mirrored in the tense set of his shoulders, his eyes darting away, unable to meet hers. The room felt suffocating, the weight of our actions pressing down. And yet, Victoria's reaction wasn't what I'd braced for. No outburst, no accusations, just a stillness that was somehow more unsettling, her eyes holding a sadness that cut deeper than anger ever could. She stepped inside, closing the door with a soft click, the sound final, like the sealing of a verdict. Ava, you need to understand something, she said, her voice softer than I expected, almost gentle. There's more to this than you realise, more than either of you can see right now. Her words hung in the air, cryptic, heavy with meaning I couldn't grasp, my mind too tangled in guilt and confusion to unravel them. What did she mean? What more could there be? The question gnawed at me, but her calmness, her lack of rage, was a lifeline I hadn't anticipated, a fragile thread of hope in the chaos. She didn't turn away, didn't cast us out. Instead, she stood there, offering something I didn't deserve, understanding, or at least the promise of it. I glanced at Nathan, his face a map of conflict, guilt etching lines where moments ago there had been warmth, his hands fidgeting, betraying the turmoil beneath his silence. The connection we'd shared, so vivid, so consuming, now felt like a weight we both carried, a secret that had altered the fabric of our lives. Victoria's presence shifted everything, her quiet strength forcing us to confront the reality of what we'd done, not just to ourselves, but to her, to the life they'd built. I wanted to speak, to explain, but the words felt inadequate, too small for the enormity of the moment. The silence stretched heavy until I found my voice trembling but resolute. Nathan, what do we do now? His eyes met mine, a storm of emotions swirling within them, guilt, shame, but also the lingering echo of what we'd felt. I don't know, Ava, he said, his voice cracking. I don't know what to feel, what to think, if I'm even allowed to feel anything at all. His words mirrored my own turmoil, torn between the pull of our connection and the reality of his commitment to Victoria, his wife, the woman who stood before us, offering not condemnation, but a chance to face this mess. I took a deep breath, stepping closer to him, not to touch, not to reignite what we'd started, but to bridge the distance between our shared uncertainty. I don't think we can solve this now, I said softly, my voice steadier than I felt. But we need to talk, to be honest, to figure out what this is, what it means. Nathan nodded, his expression grave, but there was a flicker of relief, a shared understanding that we couldn't run from this, not anymore. It's not going to be easy, he said, his voice low, but I want to understand. I need to know what's happening between us. I reached for his hand, not out of desire, but for comfort, for the grounding weight of his presence, my fingers brushing his, a touch both familiar and charged with unspoken questions. We sat there, the silence wrapping around us, not oppressive now, but contemplative, a space to process the whirlwind of emotions, the guilt, the longing, the confusion that had no easy answers. Victoria's words echoed in my mind, her offer of understanding a beacon in the fog. She hadn't rejected us, hadn't turned away, and that choice, that grace, gave me hope, fragile but real, that we could navigate this, not alone, but together. I looked at Nathan, his eyes still avoiding mine, but softening. And, for the first time, I felt a quiet resolve. We would face this, not with excuses or denial, but with honesty, no matter how painful. The path forward was unclear, the questions too vast for one night, one conversation. But Victoria's unexpected compassion had opened a door, a chance to confront what we'd done, what we felt, what we might still feel. The future was uncertain, the weight of our choices heavy, but as we sat in that quiet room, I knew we'd take the next step together, not knowing where it would lead, but trusting that truth, however messy, would guide us. Somehow we'd find a way through. Not perfect, not simple, but real, and that was enough for now.